All right, so this is Willie. Does Burning Crusade need fixing? The reason I'm interested in this video over some of the others was Burning Crusade Classic is coming out at the end of this year. I know a lot of people are very excited, and to some degree, I'm very excited as well. Burning Crusade was really good. Having said that, for me as a player, and I don't want to speak for anyone else, but for me as a player, I feel like I'm very burnt out on doing the same thing over and over. Once again, that's just me, not everyone. For example, I can't play Classic over and over and over again. I get bored. So what do I do instead? Well, I play Hardcore because that's a twist on Classic. I play Sod because that's a twist on Classic, right? Retail is the same thing over and over, but I tried Warathan because it's brand new. I'm excited for Mists of Pandaria because we haven't played it in 13 years or however long. Burning Crusade, we just played 3 years ago or whatever. And if there's nothing new, no fixes, it's the same exact thing. I feel like I have a lack of excitement where I want there to be excitement because BC owns, but it's like, well, we just did that. We literally just did that. Is there anything different? Anyway, if this video can help me understand and tackle that question, I'm going to be happy. So let's take a look.
Once again after vanilla ends on Anniversary Realms. This will probably take place around late 2025 to early 2026, but that is still to be confirmed. Vanilla itself and Anniversary just got Phase 4 on May 1st, which is Zul'Gurub. This means it has 2 major raid tiers left to go through, an AQ as well as an Axramus. And I've already seen a lot of people building up hype for WoW's first expansion and getting excited to go through the Dark Portal once again and see how it all played out. But should the Burning Crusade match how everything was the first time around it re-released in 2021? Or this time around, should some things be different?
Yeah, okay,
because
perfect.
it's worth a note that since the Burning Crusade's first classic release, there are now so many more different versions of WoW that exist in an official capacity, such as there being seasonal realms with Season of Discovery, or Hardcore WoW as well. So I want to talk a bit about them too, and whether they could work for the Burning Crusade. It is still well in advance of TBC releasing, but that's the best time to be talking about these things and asking these kinds of questions. So we'll be talking about the good, the bad, and how likely it is to actually happen for Burning Crusade seasonal realms, TBC Hardcore, and modifications to the base TBC game, in addition to those made during its first classic release in 2021. But first, I want to share with you another MMORPG from the past that's just been totally revamped, Ragnarok X. Having just officially released, Ragnarok X brings new life to one of the most iconic MMORPG franchises in gaming through modernized gameplay, whilst carefully preserving the charm and systems that long-time fans will remember. Players can choose from 6 iconic classes with deep progression paths, enjoy nostalgic party-based combat, and explore a beautifully updated 3D world that retains Ragnarok's signature art style. Ragnarok has a player-driven economy and skill-based guild versus guild battles, ensuring that strategy, teamwork, and character customization determine success rather than financial investment. Classic systems such as families, alliances, crafting, and boss hunting return, offering diverse gameplay options for all types of adventurers. Newcomers will benefit from guided onboarding, whilst veterans can dive straight into advanced builds, competitive content, and more team-based strategies. What impressed me most about Ragnarok is how it offers various gameplay options. Whether you want to play on mobile, PC, or enjoy the diverse in-game activities like job transitions, fishing, and mining, there will be something for everyone. And Ragnarok X is now expanding to Western regions with plenty of content planned, including seasonal events, collaborations, and more. So whether you're a player from back in the day or brand new to Ragnarok, you can try it out for free today by checking the links down below. Many thanks to Ragnarok X for the sponsor today. Let's get on back to WoW. We'll start off with the idea of there being some kind of seasonal progression onto the Burning Crusade, which most people would take to mean after season.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt the video, but I just thought last time I played TBC, what I mainly did is PvP'd. Like, that was basically it. I hit max level and I PvP'd. Same thing last time I played Classic in 2019. I played Classic in 2019. I PvP'd and then quit. In 2021, TBC came out. I PvP'd and then quit, right? So maybe this time when TBC comes out in November, I'll actually just check out all the PvE and just play all the PvE and actually do all the raids. Funny enough, back in the day in TBC, I didn't do all the raids because I wasn't good enough. I was a kid and I was a noob. And in 2021, I didn't do all the raids because I was mainly interested in the PvP. So actually doing the TBC raids for the first time, I've done them, but not extensively by any means, but doing them for the first time would actually be kind of cool. I've done them in Project 70 we did on retail, so that like kind of counts. And I've done them as transmog runs, which doesn't really count. And then I've done them as like old content and like Wrath and Kata and stuff, and I feel like that doesn't really count. So I haven't really done them as like current content stuff.
Of Discovery has concluded. On the positive side, this would mean
guys, okay, I didn't leak November. We know that it's towards the end of the year. I was saying November as a figure of speech. I didn't, guys, you can't come to me like, oh, Xaryu leaked the release date. First of all, I don't even know the release dates. They don't even tell us that stuff, which I wish they would, because sometimes it's like, okay, I want to go out of town and I need to know when to go out of town, and I don't actually know because, anyway, I actually don't know. But November is a pretty good guess because we know it's at the end of the year. It's probably not December, so it's probably November.
Definite future for seasonal servers, for something for them to continue on to and to keep growing. And I've seen this question crop up more and more because Season of Discovery at this point in time has very much grown its own fan base, and with the season appearing to, one way or the other, draw to a close or slow down, we're still not entirely sure which, people, as they're playing an MMO, are naturally looking for what comes next. And that really is the big strength of there being potentially a TBC seasonal. You just know what'll happen in the future. But I think there are a few more negative points which you could bring up for TBC seasonal, which would certainly put me off giving it a go. First things first, if developers were committing to this kind of idea, well, they'd have to keep developing it for however long it runs. This would mean easily over a year timescale of them messing with TBC class balance, when instead they could be working towards other things, which I think they already are. And if TBC seasonal happened, it would happen more or less at the same time as TBC's actual re-release. This would be an absolute disaster of a scenario to occur. You really can't offer two of the same expansion at the same time. That will divide the player base heavily and just annoy people. And Season of Discovery so far has been about two main things really, rebalancing classes and new content. So TBC class balance is already in a better place than Classic was, in that at least you want to bring a wide variety of specs to each raid. It has a bit of a class hierarchy where you have your tanks, your healers, your DPS, and then your DPS that you bring to make the DPS that do damage do more damage. I just call them support specs, such as Shadow Priest, Enhancement, Shaman, Boomkin, and so on. As for possible new content in TBC, it just doesn't exist in a way where it does for Classic. Classic has Gilneas, Grimbatol, Hyjal, Karazhan, the Scarlet Crusade, and many more different avenues that could be pursued for new content. Some of them have been. TBC just doesn't have this edge in terms of unexplored ground. During TBC, Blizzard really did everything that they wanted to do, and after they committed to expansions, they really packaged everything neatly together into one massive land, and then moved on to the next when they were done.
So I agree on so many levels with Crendor here, guys, on so many levels. Everyone says, oh, Sod would be so cool in TBC, and don't get me wrong, I love Sod. I've played so much Sod, I'm a Sod fan. I would be so mad if they took Sod to TBC, because it would be a cop-out of content. Because what we really want in Sod is Classic Plus, and what that should really be is developing Azeroth. Developing things like, where's Grimbatol? Developing things like Grimbatol. Developing things like, where's Oldham? Oldham. Developing things that are already in this old world, and not just... oh, go enjoy Outlands with all your runes. Like, oh, I would be so mad, bro. I would probably still play, to be honest, but like, I'd be so mad. I'd be like, oh man, we had something cool going with Sod and there's so much potential, and now you just kind of throw us in Outlands because it's already made content. I'd be like, that's a cop-out, right? I don't want that. I feel like that would be the worst possible thing. And Crendor makes another good point. If there's Sod TBC, which they shouldn't do, if there's Sod TBC and then actual TBC out at the same time, it's like the people that want to play TBC are now then split. Like that's terrible. It's just like worst case scenario ever. So hopefully they don't go down that route.
Overall, TBC...
Oh, it's Willy. Did I say... I said Krendor. Sorry, that's... You guys are right. Willy. My bad, Willy.
At a glance can seem like a natural follow-up to Season of Discovery, but in my opinion it just doesn't make sense to do. Usually I'm pretty open-minded about updates to the game, but in this case it's one of the few times where I would actively be against them doing this.
Yeah, same.
In fact, I'll go above and beyond that and say Seasonal WoW doesn't belong in any other version of WoW apart from Vanilla. Only Vanilla has the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor as the key world landmass, and it also has that volume of unexplored content that can really be built upon. The timing with TBC Anniversary I would imagine would be a negative, hypothetically were this to happen, and seasonal TBC would mean developers are just spending their time on something which ultimately I don't think would be super worth it, when instead they could be doing, you know, Classic Plus for example, which I'm still very hopeful is being worked on in the background. So overall I think that seasonal content outside of vanilla just doesn't work. Next up we've got the Burning Crusade Hardcore. On the positive side, this will be new ground for hardcore characters, and when you hit Outland in lower levels of gear, it will be quite challenging and interesting to see which quests or elites are particularly challenging to players, where are the pitfalls, what zones are the most dangerous, which quests should you skip, and all that kind of stuff. It could definitely make for some good new content. There already were fresh hardcore realms released alongside Anniversary Realms 2, which could certainly progress to the Burning Crusade at the same time as regular realms. On the not so positive side for TBC Hardcore, while the vanilla content would be mostly unchanged, except it would kind of just be faster and easier. I don't think it would feel as though the game had actually started until you hit Outland, and that is a massive upfront time investment to really get into the new stuff. Also, the endgame content in heroic dungeons and raids will be considerably more challenging than...
So I think the only way you actually do TBC Hardcore is if you release them with character copies from a level 60 from the current hardcore anniversary realms. So I could character copy my samurai to TBC at 60 with all my gear, with all my gold, with everything on that character, and I could level up. And if I died, I would go back to level 60 where I transferred that character. That would be the checkpoint, level 60 and on. So if you died, you have to redo all the TBC content to hit 70. You have to get back to 70. You have to redo all your stuff to then get back into the raids or dungeons or whatever, or heroics. To me, that's how you do it if you're gonna do it. Now, I'm actually maybe a bit more pessimistic about TBC Hardcore than most other people. I don't know if it's the right decision. I think I would say probably just keep Hardcore to Classic, which a lot of people would probably disagree with, but I think splitting Hardcore between all these different versions might not be the move. Like, Classic Hardcore is so good, right? Kind of just let it be its thing versus trying to bring it to everywhere, I think. But if they were to do TBC Hardcore, I think that's how you have to do it, where you can copy your 60 characters over, you have that 60 checkpoint, you can push the content. If you die, you go back to 60, and you do TBC Hardcore. You don't keep going back up to level 1. Now, if you want to start at level 1, you can, obviously, but I think that's how you would have to do it, if you did do it.
And anything Classic has had to offer. On top of that, now you're playing a game with no world buffs, greatly reduced amounts of consumables, really high boss damage, threat mattering a lot more, and so on. Imagine if someone misclicks the cube on Magtheridon, it would be an absolute massacre. Saying that the Flask of Petrification does still exist in TBC, and as far as I can tell will work the same way, so there is still the get out of jail relatively free card. Saying that, a bunch of guilds have cleared Naxxramas on Classic in Hardcore, and I bet when the Hardcore scene was taking off, a lot of people just thought it wouldn't have been possible. Overall, I don't imagine it's a massive time investment on Blizzard's part just to let Anniversary Hardcore realms carry over to TBC. I don't know how much of a desire there is from the player base for this to happen though. For me, I feel kind of, I mean, sure, why not, just let it happen kind of thing. And to be honest, if it doesn't happen officially, players always have the option to go back to using the add-on for TBC Hardcore if enough people want it. Hardcore realms exist because players made it happen with the add-on over on Classic Era. I'm sure they can do it again. I think the biggest barrier to entry are the 58 levels you have to do in vanilla before you actually get to step through the Dark Portal though, and you really can't let people skip that journey because you can transfer from Hardcore to PvE if you die, and that would be abused by bots incredibly hard.
What you could do, alternatively for TBC Hardcore, if you did do it, is creating a character optionally at level 58. So 58 basically boosts would be free, and if you died, you would have an opportunity to just restart at that 58, and you'd go from 58 to 70 would be the leveling experience on Hardcore. That'd be the TBC leveling experience, 58 to 70. And then you would start off with you know, crappy-ish green gear, like boost gear, and not a ton of gold and whatever. And then if you died, you're back to square one, right? Like that could kind of work too, instead of the transferring system.
So for Hardcore TBC, I kind of feel as though, sure, why not? Next, let's talk about a few potential changes to our standard TBC as we know it, and as it was released in 2021. It's an expansion that a lot of people really rate, that has a lot of strengths and some noticeable weaknesses too. Talking changes compared to our first TBC release, I think that there are 3 big things which dominate the conversation: how Shaman's Bloodlust or Heroism ability will work, ult and friendliness, and whether there will be TBC era realms. So in TBC, Bloodlust or Heroism is group wide and there's no debuff upon use. This makes running somewhere between 5 to 7 Shaman kind of mandatory, as without their buffs, the game just really isn't that fun to play. It also leads to metagaming where people can swap Shamans into a group with their top DPS so they can chain cast Heroism for them so they have 100% uptime. The easy change here is just adding the sated debuff after using Bloodlust and making it raid wide. This is basically how it works in Wrath of the Lich King, so people don't have to worry about needing as many Shaman, and it ensures that everyone gets Heroism instead of this buff just being filtered down to a few players. And for what it's worth, if you think this is gonna kill Shaman class representation in raids and you'll only take 1 for Bloodlust, I strongly believe that will not be the case. Shamans are still a very valuable class, primarily in more of a supportive role, and their totem buffs are just way too good. On top of that, Resto Shamans are one of the top healers for the expansion. I still think even if Bloodlust is raid wide, you're going to be seeing 4 to 5 Shaman per raid, which is still a lot, but at least it's a bit more reasonable. And if you have fewer Shamans than that, at least you're not suffering from not having Heroism. Now in terms of ult friendliness, especially if Blizzard do TBC on a faster cadence, as they are doing with Vanilla Anniversary, they need to take a look at this really badly. There are 2 big barriers to entry for endgame content for ults in TBC. Those needing heroic dungeon keys, which are currently at Revered, and attunements. For the keys, you can pretty easily get to Honored during leveling through questing, dungeons, and just usual activities. So it seems as though it will be an easy compromise so people aren't having to excessively grind on a 2nd or 3rd character to enter heroic dungeons. Attunements were something that were removed with patches as the expansion progressed, but if things are going to be moving faster, which I think they will be, you just want to get into the raids on your ults as soon as possible and not have to worry about doing them. I still think you'll have to do attunements on your main. I mean, it's a core part of TBC, you can't just delete it, but it should be more of a one-time thing, and then perhaps...
Would you guys want account-wide attunements for TBC re-release? Is that something that would make you happy? Do you want it? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. There's some no's as well, but it seems like 80+% yeses, maybe 90+% yeses. I wouldn't mind account-wide attunements on TBC. I'm not even really one who plays alts. I mean, you guys watch my stream, right? Like, I usually stick to 1 character off per expansion because I have like 1 character on retail, 1 character on Kata, 1 character on Sod, 1 character on Hardcore, 1 character on Era. It's like, those are my alts, right? Each version of WoW is my alt, right? Because I bounce between them all. So I feel like I don't have enough time to have multiple characters on every single WoW. So anyway, it doesn't really matter to me. But even as someone with 1 character, it would be like, well, if I did want to make an alt, like I could do the grind, but I wouldn't have to unlock all the attunes. I would probably vote for it. I would probably say yes.
Perhaps you have account-wide access. Alternatively, or maybe not just alternatively, but in addition, Blizzard could look to add significant Badge of Justice rewards to attunement quest lines to keep them active. At the end of the day, attunements keep a lot of varied content in the game active, and in that regard are really good. Imagine you're playing an alt and say, for example, you could get 100 badges for completing the Kara attunement quest. Maybe that would be enough to make it feel as though it's worth your while. So in addition to getting a bunch of items from the dungeons, you can then go straight to the badge vendor and buy 2 or so more pieces. This is just helping your alt gear up a bit faster and get into raids faster. If you remember back in Wrath Classic, Blizzard added emblems to the end of Wrath of the Lich King quest chain so that people felt incentivized to complete them fully. So there kind of is a precedent for them doing this. One way or another though, heroic keys and attunements do need some consideration this time around. Next point we have to talk about for TBC are error realms. So the first time around TBC didn't get them, and I will be surprised if this time around they also don't. Error would happen when TBC will be coming to—
I don't think there should be any other era realms besides classic era realms. Like, I really don't, because then you're gonna run into this like MOP era, Kata era, TBC era, Wrath era, classic era, retail. It's like, dude, no, that's the last thing we need is more WoWs.
To a close, and would allow people to remain on a fully progressed TBC realm where they could keep playing their characters or make new ones without the worry of the expansion progressing. I also reckon there will be people on anniversary realms who don't want to progress to TBC either, and will expect some kind of service to copy or transfer their character to the current classic era realms. I think this will also happen, and it just makes too much sense for it not to be a thing. The only thing you're losing out on is the LFG and dual spec transferring from anniversary to era, but otherwise it's a pretty similar ordeal. And beyond TBC finishing, there's also the possibility of Wrath Anniversary Realms 2, which I think will be announced at BlizzCon 2026, but again, we'll have to see what happens here. For me, TBC still has some other noticeable and rather large issues, such as it feeling as though there really isn't much to do outside of raid or PvP, and that it's a super raid log expansion. Not that there's anything wrong with raid logging per se, it's just that sometimes I want to play my main, but I can't find a reason to do so. And I think quite a few of the—
Couldn't you say that same thing about like most versions of WoW? I mean, I guess after Legion you have Mythic Plus, and that kind of fundamentally changes everything because you can grind M Plus, and that's fine. But from Classic till Warlords of Draenor, you could raid or PvP. Right? Like that, like what else you could raid or PvP. Like those are the things that you have to do. Like that's the game. The idea is it takes a long time to level, long time to get that pre-bis, a long time to actually, prog through the raid. And then once you clear the raid, then you need to actually continue to clear the raid to get your actual bis. And once you get your actual bis, then you can actually play the game and have fun because you're a best in slot character. And then from there, you're waiting for the next patch. That's kind of the hamster wheel we're all on, right? So it's like, it's true, but it's not necessarily just true for TBC. It's kind of just true around the board.
The caster spec rotations are very bland for the most part. Yeah, I played a Warlock for a bunch of TBC, but addressing these would require much larger changes, which, to be honest, probably only would fit into a seasonal format, and we've covered my thoughts on that already. Overall, for the changes to our base TBC Classic game, it's A, will Blizzard change how Bloodlust or Heroism work to make them raid-wide or provide a debuff? B, will they look into the issue of alt friendliness of the expansion, given it's expected to be on a faster cadence? And C, will they commit to doing TBC era this time around? Not. And I suppose, what about Wrath Anniversary Realms too? Given that Blizzard have experimented a bit with changes for Anniversary Realms, such as the LFG and Dual Spec, both of which have been super well received by the way, I could see them testing the waters with additional changes. But as always, a lot of things have happened in this game just because people have asked for them. So if it's something you want, do be vocal about it. So those are just a few thoughts from me on the future of Anniversary Realms heading on into TBC, as well as some additional game modes which may or may not happen. What do you think as far as TBC seasonal or hardcore though? Would you try them out? And would you want to see any realistic changes to the base TBC game as well? Let me know in the comments down below. And
man, this is a lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good questions that I'm sure Blizzard's very aware of and actively trying to answer. Should we do TBC hardcore? I think the answer ultimately is probably no. Should there be TBC era? I think the ultimate question is probably no. Should there be some changes for TBC coming out in this November, aka later in the year? I think the answer is yes. I think there should be some small quality of life stuff. I kind of like the idea of Accountwide Attunements. I kind of like the idea of fixing Shaman sated. I kind of like the idea. I mean, we already have dual spec, which is already a change, which is great. So I think the answer on that could be yes, depending on the change. And then what was the other one? Wrath. I mean, Wrath will surely follow TBC, right? There's no question. Like we'll for sure have Wrath in like another year. And once again, the same questions then apply to Wrath. So yeah, very good video, very solid upload.